For Affordable Pennsylvania, one of the groups that helped organize this event tonight. We really appreciate you all coming out tonight. I would also like to thank all of our other partners who helped us organize this event. One Pennsylvania, SEIU State Council, the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg, the Pennsylvania Council of Churches, Workforce Pennsylvania, and Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates. And we are very grateful to be joined by our panel of speakers here tonight, who will help shed some light on how the federal tax and spending bill will impact Pennsylvania. So tonight you will hear from these issue experts who will outline some of the local repercussions that this bill will have. And then there will be an opportunity for us to hear from all of you to share your stories and your concerns about this legislation and ask any questions. I would politely encourage everyone, since we are an intimate group tonight, if you did want to move up a row or two, we would love that. You know, to feel more in conversation with each other. I really appreciate it. I know, I'm sorry. Thank you for tolerating it. But so, as you know, as many of you may already be aware, this legislation will make some of the largest cuts in history to critical benefits programs like Medicaid and SNAP. Nearly 1 in 4 Pennsylvanians are on Medicaid, including more than 180,000 residents right here in Pennsylvania's 10th congressional district. You know, this bill will also pull away healthcare resources, you know, from working families, has the potential to shutter rural hospitals, and threaten food assistance for families in the state. We had invited our federal elected officials here tonight, Senators McCormick and Fetterman and Representative Scott Perry. We had hoped, you know, especially those who had voted in favor of this bill, and our Congressman Scott Perry would be here with us tonight. You know, to come and educate his constituents and speak about his vote. Obviously, unfortunately, he is not here. But, you know, Pennsylvanians, all of you, your friends and neighbors, community deserve to know, you know, what this legislation will bring. And so we hope to shed some more light and answer your questions. And with that, I am very honored to introduce our panel moderator, Joyce Davis, who is the opinion editor at PennLive.
Thank you very much, Sheryl. Actually, yes, I'm the opinion editor at PennLive, but I'm actually here as president of the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg. And thank you. And I was so delighted that these organizations reached out to ours, because we love to hold forums that help inform and engage residents of our community. And just so you know, we are nonpartisan, non-political. We are really only about delving down into the facts and finding out what is what. And that's what I hope we will do today. But this is truly an important issue. We know there are major changes coming in federal funding. And what is that going to mean for us here in Pennsylvania? We have identified, after coming together for several forums, we have identified 4 main areas that we want to delve into. But it doesn't stop you from delving into others if you want, for raising those issues, because again, this is a conversation, not a lecture. But I am happy to say that helping us in this conversation, and I really want, if I had a hat on, I would take it off right now to Gary Blumenthal, because at the last minute we had a speaker who was going to talk about healthcare, but couldn't make it. Gary said yes. I just messaged him, I emailed, and he said, yeah, I'll be right there. And thank you. That's really, really yeoman's work. But also we have with us somebody who I also called on several, he'll appear at several other things, Chris Lilienthal, who's with the Pennsylvania State Education Association. He's always got an open heart to participate in community forums. So thank you for that. And we also have with us Steve Catanese, who's president of SEIU Local 668, and he's got a lot to share with us about jobs and the economy and all the stuff that we care about with our pocketbooks. And a dear, dear, dear lady, Sheryl Meck, is here with us. She has a hard job. She is the Civil Rights Director for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. And she will be sharing with us some of the impacts that she sees as a result of the federal decisions. So with that, I could ask, well, who wants to go first? But you know what? I'm just going to put the education guy on the spot and let him go first. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to do it to you, Gary. But
I'm glad. Well, first off, Joyce, thank you so much for inviting me, for inviting PSA to be represented here today to talk about this, because it really is such an incredibly important issue for our members. We represent 177,000 folks across Pennsylvania who work in our public schools, as well as our retirees and our aspiring educators. So the young enthusiastic college students who are studying to become teachers, they're wonderful to work with. And across all those folks, all those age ranges, there's a lot of concern about this federal reconciliation bill. And I'm just going to highlight real quickly 4 big things from our perspective. Number one is the cuts to Medicaid coverage. There's about $1 trillion worth of cuts to Medicaid coverage over the next decade that is projected to result in the loss of health care coverage for 10 million Americans. 10 million Americans. So those are folks, those are families, those are children, those are folks in our classrooms, kids in our classrooms and their families, who are going to be in a situation where they might not be able to go to the doctor, they may not be able to get treatment for chronic conditions, and that's going to have a tremendous impact on their lives, and it's going to have a tremendous impact on their education and the ability of our educators and support staff to do the important work they do. The second big concern we have, of course, are the cuts to SNAP, nutrition assistance. Again, I actually see a member out here in the audience, and he'll tell you as good as I can, a hungry student is not going to be able to learn. Sitting in a classroom, if they haven't gotten proper nutrition, if they haven't had access to meals because their SNAP nutrition benefits have been cut, they're going to struggle to learn in the classroom. They're going to go home and struggle to do their homework. You know, SATs, applying to colleges, all of these stuff, it's going to impact their lives in big ways and impact their families. Third is the impact on higher education. There's a number of changes in this bill to how student loans and grants are administrated at the federal level, and the result is going to be higher education is less affordable for more people. Their repayment options are going to be stricter. They're going to owe more, especially those graduates who are on very fixed incomes. And then third, or fourth rather, a big concern for us is for the first time, this legislation creates a federal voucher program, a private school voucher program. You know, from our perspective as educators working in public schools, we have seen again and again in many states across this country, voucher programs siphon funding away from public schools to private schools. And this program in particular has no cap on spending. So projections are that annually it could cost the federal government between $30 and $50 billion, a billion with a B, to fund a voucher program. To put that in some context, we spend about $33 billion annually for public school federal funding that supports Title I for low-income students and students with disabilities. We could be in a position where we are spending more each year on a voucher program that benefits 10% of students than we do for the public school programs that benefit 90% of students. So that's just a very quick overview of some of our concerns. I can tell you we are an association of 177,000 incredible advocates. They are very vocal, they are very willing to go out, engage their congresspeople, engage the senators, and that's really what we've been trying to do as an organization, give our members opportunities, and as well as the broader public, opportunities to reach out and let Senator McCormick, Senator Fetterman, let your congressperson know what's at stake here and what this is going to mean for our neighborhood public schools, what it's going to mean for healthcare, what it's going to mean for the health of our communities.
And have they responded to you? You've reached out to them. Have you had dialogue?
Have they responded?
Just
depends on who you're talking about. We have engaged with them. We have heard some very positive responses from some members of Congress. Congressman Perry has not been willing to engage with us, so we have made efforts to reach out to him. But we will keep doing what we
Okay,
do.
we'll come back to you to have some more conversation. I'm sure there are questions about that, but let's move on to Steve. Steve, look, everyone has been trying to figure out what the tariffs will mean for the economy. Supporters of the Trump administration say the tariffs will help American businesses and make it easier for them to compete in world markets. Going to bring in billions of dollars, and the deadline is here. So what is your view of this? How are you viewing all of this, and what do you think it's going to mean for jobs and the economy?
Oh, I'm listening to the president. It's all going to be great, right? No, that's not what no. So, just for perspective, I'm Steve Catanese, president of SEIU Local 668, represent workers across the Commonwealth, especially a lot of public services. Took some of my talking points because our biggest group of workers, like myself and Nina, my secretary treasurer in the back, is caseworker for public assistance. SNAP, Medicaid, I've made sure people get that job as well, folks do. So anyways, as a segue to this, a few years ago, 6 years ago maybe, I had a chance to testify to the Ways and Means Committee in Congress about the impact on trade deals, because if you talk about this topic, you talk about tariffs, I think it's very easy there's so many bad things that Trump and his administration are doing right now, because there are many. And I think some Democrats who just want to inherently figure out a position that's oppositional, they either fall into two categories. Either one, I think this thing's bad, or two, well, what is this middle of the road thing that I think people will want to hear? The nature of our testimony on this topic kind of went to, and I think we're starting to experience it right now. We've had bad trade deals in the United States that hurt working people for a long time. But where organized labor's historic position's been, and where I kind of find myself at, I kind of find myself in, cosmopolitanism is kind of used as like a scary buzzword on some of these fringy policy people that are supporting some of these protectionist grounds. And really, in a sense, that means how we look out for and care for our neighbors, whether they're in our country or across another border, right? And when these bad trade deals happen, organized labor always fought it, not only because it was hurting jobs that were being outsourced from America, but to the places those jobs were getting outsourced, people are getting exploited, right? You can still be my sister or brother in labor, whether you're in India, Africa, China, and part of that whole idea of where we want to be is American workers shouldn't get screwed, workers across the Atlantic and the Pacific shouldn't get screwed, workers shouldn't get screwed, period, by billionaires, right? So, over time, there are, from organized labor, my own personal perspective, there are situations where a tariff might be helpful, right? For a working person, for a very specific industry, or say, America putting tariffs on coffee coming from Colombia. People who put coffee beans from Colombia, you don't have a competing industry here. It's just punitive on a working person. It doesn't actually help them out, right? There's industries in America that could be helped by something like that. That's not what's happening. And as we see public services get decimated and eroded over years, and this is kind of where our testimony went, you're losing these public safety nets that people relied on when they lose their job, right? We represent some folks that work at the state. It's their job when someone gets laid off that they drive to where they're getting laid off, they walk people through, here's how you apply for unemployment, here's what your benefits are, here's what your rights are. And it can be anywhere from a group of 5 people to a group of 500 or 5,000, right? You have, unemployment, SNAP, Medicaid. Those social safety nets are vital to workers who are losing their jobs. With this tariff scheme and this new bill, this messaging is meant to try to semi-court American workers and feel like it's doing something to keep our jobs here and protect them from going overseas. It's not really doing that, right? We're just going to mainly see a little bit of cost of living go up. It's not going to bring jobs back. And at the same time, you're pulling away from the public services. They're supposed to be helping people that are jobless right now, right? So, at least from where we're looking at this thing, this whole protectionist philosophy, which really seems to be more about a projection of power versus actually helping a working American or a working person anywhere. So, is there a world in which a tariff could be helpful to workers here or elsewhere?
Yeah.
That exists. Does this blanket plan that just gets truthed out or whatever the hell his posting thing is every other day. Is that what this is? No, right? So I think there are like legitimate solutions that you could look at to help trade imbalances, but like you have to identify what are the industries you're trying to protect. What are the vital industries for the trade partner? How do you make sure both sides are getting okay with this? Or if you're actually using a tariff in a way that's meant to help a working person, maybe we leverage it so that like the expectation for the other country is that they raise the standard of living for a worker, right? At what point in this conversation, this dialogue, has a worker, has something ever been about, okay, the reason we're raising this cost is because the cost is so low somewhere else, because someone's getting paid pennies, because Nike's building this shoe in an unsafe factory in Pakistan, right? That ain't what's happening. That's not what's happening, excuse me, sorry. But it's, you're not seeing that in the rhetoric. What you're seeing is this idea that we can punish because we are the hegemonic power right now. We can punish people to get something back that's helpful for us as America. But what does that mean? It's attacking woke in France or whatever, right? Like these all come out at the same time. So at some point, right, Joyce?
Yeah, Steve, let me ask you this. What about, I mean, because everybody would be happy if we suddenly had a flurry of factories and manufacturing jobs come, right?
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be what is behind some of this, to incentivize companies to now start making things in America.
Yeah.
Why isn't that working, or why won't it work?
Yeah, because I'm looking for them, and I don't. I mean, I think, look, coming from organized labor, right, at the moment, I hate to come and always say, like, things are bleak sometimes, but things are pretty bleak. Like, jobs like ours, like, especially like educators, public servants, so many folks that work at the state, we represent workers that work with Sheryl, right? So many of them have a second and third job right now, right? We live in this gig economy where even the jobs that were always supposed to be what held up the standard of living, they're gutted. And then this bill, right? When you go into student loan repayment and things like that, there was a certain period of time where I don't think people realized that it was going to envelop the workforce. How much student loans actually matter to like your average aged, going into middle age now workforce, right? But I knew when I got my first day job and I was like in my early 30s, I didn't have student loans to deal with. It's way life worked out for me. But I had a lot of peers that did. And all of them was crushing. And then, my own partner has student loans. She just got them forgiven after years of nonprofit service. But for a moment, when that bill went, because if folks were following it, the Trump administration kept changing kind of the barriers, and people were getting conflicting messages. She had this lower payment plan for a while, and then all of a sudden she got the notice that it wasn't getting renewed because the Department of Education, which pseudo exists now, suddenly was working to eliminate them. So she found out her plan was going up by $300, right? And it was like, how do I afford that? And then like less than a month later, she found out she'd actually hit the threshold for forgiveness, and it went away. And it was like this roller coaster. But everybody in this, the reason you're working a second and third job is because these jobs have been traditionally middle class, jobs that help the working class get a little bit up higher. They don't match where they need to go anymore because the profits aren't staying here the same way. These tariff schemes aren't really doing things to incentivize shoring things here and actually providing legitimate wages to people that they don't need to do that. And then because part of this topic of the bill, right? Yeah. When you're gutting things that are actually helping working class people make ends meet, like student loan forgiveness and like simplified repayment plans, then really you're still going to live in this gig economy where like people are looking second, third, fourth jobs to survive. And
we'll come back, and because I want to delve a little bit into inflation and all of that too. That's another.
See, look, it's all the nice topics tonight.
Well, we said we wanted to talk about it, so now I got a headache now, so I got to talk about healthcare.
I love talking to you too. Thank you.
Okay, so how are we going to deal with our anxiety and health and all? I mean, how is the healthcare going to be impacted by all this?
Well, let me ask a question first. How many of you live in the 10th district, Scott Perry's district? Okay, how many of you have been able to meet with him face to face to talk?
Yeah.
Okay. How many of you consume health care? Okay? This bill will screw you and has screwed you. Your health insurance will increase, whether you have Medicaid or not. Beginning January 1st, 2026, those who have purchased their health insurance through the exchanges, if you bought it through a state exchange, the federal supports that went to states, so-called Obamacare supports that made those prices reasonable or affordable for some individuals are gone, absolutely gone. Dollars from the American Recovery Act that the Biden administration passed. Unfortunately, it passed during the Biden administration by Joe Biden and a Democratic Congress. Therefore, it was gone. It had to be revoked. That will raise insurance costs as well. So you're going to see beginning in January of 26, you're going to see health care costs for those who are buying their health care through the exchange. Your insurance costs will go up anywhere from 23% to 53%.
Oh my God.
Okay? This act, this Reconciliation Act, the health care provisions in this act, I think are a great crime against the American people. And I think eventually, the dullards that voted for the son of a bitch are going to understand exactly what he has done to them. He will raise everyone's insurance. People will go to emergency rooms without insurance when their Medicaid is dropped off or when they can't afford to go to the exchanges. And the hospitals will have a moral obligation to treat people because they subscribe to an oath that says we care for people. Or there are religious affiliated institutions that say we believe in the teachings of Christ, or we believe in the teachings of Judaism, or we believe in anything, any principles. Those institutions will deliver the health care, but who's going to pay for it? You know who's going to pay for it? You will pay for it because the cost of your insurance, it's called uncompensated care. This is what the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, when I served in the Kansas legislature, this is what was happening day after day, month after month, year after year. Healthcare was going out of control. And millions upon millions of people did not have health care. And they had care that could be denied because of pre-existing conditions. So what happened? What's happened with that bill? It's the greatest act that a felon could ever do to injure the most neediest people in a nation. And that's what the son of a bitch has done. And you have to get face to face with your neighbors, the one who's flying the Trump flag outside. Or you talk to anyone that you drive up and you see, this one drives me crazy, when I drive and I see someone parked in a handicapped spot that has a Trump bumper sticker on the back. I go up to them and I say, what is it you like most about him? Is it the sexism? Is it the racism? Is it the race? Is it the fact that he's a rapist? Is it the fact that he's never paid the bill? Is it the fact that he's a deadbeat? Is it the fact that he wants to throw your grandmother out on the street and deny her Medicare and deny her Medicaid? Why is it you support this man? And this is what you have to do with your neighbors who are Trumpers. You have to ask them if all of the evidence comes out to show that this man raped a 13-year-old. If he's on the Epstein list, does that bother you? And if they still look at you and they say, I support this man because he's a success, look them in the eye and say what you're thinking. Bullshit. Bullshit. That is what's happening. If you have a family member who has a disability, you know what happens to them with this bill? They have to go in every 6 months to make sure their disability hasn't gone away. I have a brother with profound autism. He's 68 years old. He's incontinent. He has dementia. That's not going to be cured in 6 months. But you know what will happen?
Yes.
People like my brother, people like your cousins, people like your grandmother will fall through the cracks because no state has the capacity to track these individuals. And the states that have done it have discovered something, that people fall through the cracks because we don't have systems in states to track all these individuals. And whatever money it saves is minimal. It doesn't catch fraud. It catches people in the decline of their life. It catches people who are in need. It catches people who are eligible. And it takes away their supports and services. So how's healthcare going to be? It's screwed. Absolutely screwed. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I got a meeting with Scott Perry coming up. Because my son, who you met, that's the other form a couple weeks ago, my 20-year-old son, let me brag for a minute. I'm 71 and I have 20-year-old twins, a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old who's a member of your association. My son got invited by a buddy of Representative Perry's because my son was talking about the education loans for law students and the fact that they have taken away and limited the ability to get a public loan for med students and for law students. And they direct all of them instead to go to private loan companies, which will be able to charge them exorbitant interest. So my friend, who was my son's friend, it sounds like Jewish geography as I'm explaining it.
You might want to keep it on the down low so you might want to keep this one on the down low so you can still get in.
Yeah. But my son's friend's mother is married to an army buddy of Representative Perry's. And so the woman invited my son to go with. And my son said, "Can I bring my dad?" And she said, "Sure." So I wrote a letter to her telling her, "Thank you for inviting me to this meeting." And I wrote out specifically, this is what I want to ask Representative Perry to do. I want to ask Representative Perry, if you want Medicaid to be there for those who need Medicaid, those who really need it, I want you to do one thing, Representative Perry. I want you to revoke, to waive the 6-month rule. We already do 1-year checks. But what happens is people fall off the radar. They get the forms of the state that are unintelligible, that are incomprehensible. No offense to your members.
I didn't write it.
But they don't get them filled out. They don't get them. They don't understand them. They don't comprehend them. They get lost. They get misfiled. The state functions as the state functions, and people fall off, and people die. Because they cannot go without health care. They cannot go without 24-hour supports.
Gary, I knew you were going to tell it like it is. I knew you were.
But I'm telling you,
Yeah.
we are in trouble. We are in trouble. I'm going to ask Scott Perry to get the 6-month check waived.
Thank you.
And I'll let you know what he says. Oh, I've got high expectations.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be back to delve in. But you gave us a lot to chew on, all right? And now, I think for a more upbeat topic, we're going to turn to our civil rights. We're going to turn to Sheryl Meck, who really, I think, she'll describe it, but she knows how to tell you just like it is too. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Joyce, again, for allowing me to be in the space. And I love being in spaces like this to have intimate conversations with harsh truths, right? So I'd like to engage with the audience, if you will, and ask a question. If you know the PHRC and you know the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, can you give me a show of hands?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. That is good. So we are nonpartisan, and we are Pennsylvania's leading civil rights enforcement agency. And I want to make the disclaimer that executive orders at the federal level do not supersede federal law, and Pennsylvania law remains. And so let that be your comfort as we continue to talk about difficult topics. The Pennsylvania HRC, we've been here, not me, but the HRC has been in existence since 1955. That's almost 10 years before the federal law, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And when you learn and listen to stories of the origin of why PHRC came about, it was the result of a survey that was done asking employers whether or not they would hire Black employees based on various skill set jobs, whether it was a skilled set or manager position, and overwhelming percentages said no, 40 to 60%. And that was the sounding alarm that said we need a Pennsylvania HRC. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Act is what protects us all from unlawful discrimination in education, employment, commercial property, public accommodation, and housing. And then by show of hands, if you can, if you are a protected class or covered by one, will you raise your hand? So, everyone in this room is covered by a protected class. Whatever your race is, your gender or non-binary, your national origin, your religion or no religion, pregnancy status, disability, age, 40 and up. So sorry to the 20 and up.
Sorry.
I'm not there yet either, but I will have earned that protection right when I do, God willing, and so on and so forth. So I won't belabor the conversation with the full definition of the PHRA, but the point is each and every one of us are covered. And I'd also like to add that in 2023 we extended our language under the PHRA to include Crown Act protections. Are we familiar with that? Yes. So that's protective hairstyles, mostly for the African American community. Think of the stories where students were told they had to cut their locks in order to graduate or compete in a sport. That is now a part of your protection. Pregnancy status and gender identity and gender orientation and expression. So all of that is protected, and we know what's happening at the federal level. I'd like to engage in another question, and feel free to just shout out. But when we think of American culture, what is that? What does that look like?
Everything. Diversified.
Everything?
Everything.
Diversified?
Just the story name.
So, great group. Because in other spaces, you can hear different things that are not, right? So if we talk about like our Independence Day, yes, it's specific to America as far as the date, but other countries celebrate their Independence Days, right? I'm talking more like the hijab associated with Muslim culture or the menorah with the Jewish culture. So when I think of American assimilation and this push for an American culture to be defined in a certain way, how I define it is loss of identity, loss of self, loss of culture, if we were to push forward with American culture. So let me explain that a little bit further. Myself as a 1.5 gen immigrant, so my mom came over here. I was 3, so I didn't have a choice, so here I am. And, but I lost my language because my mom wanted me to assimilate. I lost different foods, different, rituals that we would do, or whatever else you want to say. I lost it because I assimilated. And I wish now, especially in the work that I do, that I still have who I was. So I love engaging in that to start. But let's get into where we're at and the effects of it. I want to talk about immigration. I want to talk about ICE. I want to talk about how much money now is being pulled into ICE resources. Think about it. The numbers aren't doubled or tripled. It's an egregious amount of money being put into ICE resources. We know what's happening in California. We're aware of Alligator Alcatraz and that facility in Florida. Make no mistake that at some point, the resources are there. This will move across the country. And I want to sit with that because I've had to have an internal reckoning that I understand American history and slavery and all the different decades and what we went through. I never thought in 2025 I would once again be afraid to simply be because of the color of my skin and how I could be Latino passing even though I'm half German, half Filipina. And I say that just to say what is happening with ICE is exactly that. Racial profiling at the expense of the Latino population first. what will happen next? Who will be next? And at what rate? And so I'm open for more questions. I know I could talk about, there's so much to talk about. I guess I could add just one or two more things. The executive order as back to American culture and assimilation. One thing that we can say now, per the current administration's executive order, is that English is the main language of America. And we've shared on other things, I know, because civil rights covers education and healthcare, but I'm open to more questions.
Yeah, and we will have more. And one before we go, my concern is, you used to be able to count on the federal if you had a loss or you wanted to, civil rights thing. If it didn't get handled here, you could always go to the federal. But it looks like that's no longer the case. Is that?
Well, absolutely. Let's talk about OCR. The gutting of Office of Civil Rights, which handled federal filing of education discrimination cases. At the time of its closing, feel free to fact check me, but I think it was around 2,000 cases that were current in investigation.
Wow.
What happened to those?
Yeah.
I know during the time, my team, when we were out across the state, that if anybody from Pennsylvania had a case with OCR, we encouraged them that if it still remained active within our jurisdictional timeline, which is 180 days, that they could file with us. But moving forward, it's important for us to get out into the community and let people know that people who don't know about the PHRC, that only thought they could file at the federal level, can always file at the state level. We have been here, we are here, and it's important to continue moving forward.
That is good news. That is good. Okay, so you've gotten this overview, and trust me, this is only the tip, I'm sure, of what they could be sharing. But I'm going to go back around before I turn it over to another moderator who's going to engage you with Q&A, the audience. But I really want to now delve into a little bit more about what are you doing about it? You are the leaders, right? Or what do you think, again, we should be doing? Again, where does it come down with us that it's time to do something? So, you want to start first, Steve? Chris?
Sure. I'm happy to weigh in on
what
that.
What can be done about anything, and what are you doing
What
about it?
can be done?
Yes.
I don't know about all of you, but at times over the last couple months, there have been moments where I've had that feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
Of there's nothing we can do. I just want to crawl in under my covers with my dog and just wait out the next 4 years. But of course we can't do that. And I'm proud to say at PSEA, we really have, I think, working with our incredible leadership, our members, as well as our staff, we've really tried to rise to the occasion. And the number one thing that we've tried to do, Joyce, is education. Again, I said we had 177,000 members. That's a lot of people. They have families, they have kids, they have parents, neighbors, friends. We want to make sure that we're educating as many of them, both through our publications, through our webinars, through our conferences, the governance events, making sure that they know what's going on. Because we've seen it in the broader society over the last couple of months. The more people get clued into what's happening, the more the tide is turning. So that's number one. Education is incredibly important. And for all of you in this room, I would encourage you, don't hide under your covers. Well, you can hide under your covers with your dog a little bit if that makes you feel better. But then come out and pay attention to what's going on and find out ways that you can engage. Number two is advocacy. We've given our members opportunities to send emails to their congressman, to call their congressman. We've tried to really flood the zone, right? We tried to inundate them with feedback so that there can be no question. Representative Scott Perry, you know what your constituents think about this. There can be no question about it. He's gotten how many phone calls, he's gotten how many requests for meetings, he's gotten how many emails. So we can't be quiet. We need to be loud and we need to be persistent. Again, showing up for events, if you're able to do that, get out there when they're having it, as long as everything's peaceful, everything's safe, go out there, be part of that, show that you are engaged and that we have a better vision. We have a vision where our civil rights are protected, where education funding is protected, where children are able to get access to nutrition, access to healthcare, where everybody is treated equally and respected, and that treated with dignity. So
Yeah, okay, that flood the zone is what you're saying, right? Okay,
Don't get
Steve.
away with it.
I think there's the other mic down there too.
Okay,
Um,
next, okay.
So we
Sorry, John.
couldn't go into that long. No. So I mean, I guess briefly, like a couple things are one, like in Pennsylvania, there's already the impacts of the bill, but our next budget in Pennsylvania is going to be a nightmare. And folks will know we don't have a budget for this year yet. There's already a fight over it. We're trying to push for a lot of solutions to help working people, like raising the minimum wage, which is actually going to become a very important thing long term because it's not just good for working people, but it brings in revenue. And we deal with the General Assembly that doesn't really have any impetus to raise taxes in next year. We're going to be looking at billions, into the billions of what we're going to be losing federal revenue. One thing where we'll focus on is the union. So we already know the Medicaid cuts that are going to be coming down. I already talked a little bit about how process-wise people are going to be kicked off benefits, whether it's SNAP or Medicaid. The federal government's going to be shifting $100 million plus in administrative costs onto Pennsylvania. It'll impact around October. I think around October of next year is about when it'll hit, so it'll probably be part of the next budget. But there's, in the bill, this didn't get a lot of headlines until now. There's a formula where based off of your error rate on your SNAP cases, your food stamp cases, your state could be penalized money. So basically what that means is every time someone gets SNAP benefits, food stamps, right? There's people who are own members, and I hate this analogy because sometimes it's like you're building your own gallows, but like you have the quality control. You take random samples, you test these cases. If somebody gets $1 more or $1 less than they should have gotten, you have an error. Then the federal government tracks that for how they're doing benefit delivery, and every state has an error rate. Something this federal bill added was that I believe the numbers are, if your SNAP error rate is above 6%, your state has to eat a cost amount that's equivalent to the total gross amount that you pay in SNAP for all the benefits of the people of your state. So if you're from 6 to 8%, you have to pick up 5%. If you're from 8 to 10, I believe it is, you have to pick up 10%. If you're over 10%, you pick up 15%. So we have to get down to below 6. Last year we were at 10.25, which is like if you average every state, it's a little bit actually better than average. So many states are in the same situation. New York's well into the 10s. There's some states that are in the 20s. So we're like aggressively messaging with our members already, because if we don't get that number down below 6, which isn't just a Pennsylvania problem, it's everywhere, you could lose the amount that we're pricing at right now is over $600 million just on not getting down to 6%. Like that's for SNAP, right?
But Steve, that's not just gonna hurt.
That's not just gonna hurt Democrats,
No, it's gonna hurt us all.
right? I mean, this is, every American is going to be hurt.
I think it's Garrett, right? I think Garrett kind of made this point, like, it's not just the forms, the cost savings are in the process. They know that this was baked into this bill through this process, like, that is purposely meant to kick people off.
It's basically saying you're all collateral damage.
Yeah, so like,
I mean,
the question is going to become,
collateral damage.
for all this extra paperwork, that all these extra work, because the workers have to process the paperwork. So the stories are already about the state needs more money to pay for caseworkers, but the feds are going to be pulling money back, and there's no revenue from the General Assembly, right? So like reversing this is like the obvious solution, and that's part of what the fight is. But it's gonna, the result of it is really, and for other state services, like because I explained this sort of PHRC members, anyone else, right? How they're going to pay for it is like the state's going to see how much money's at risk.
That's right.
You shift money around, right? And they might have to shift more money over here. Or if they don't have enough and they just say, we give up, we'll eat it, then you just, you know what I mean? It's
You
like,
raise taxes.
exactly. So it's a massive imperative, and there's all kinds of things like this that are going to get hit. So like around this time next year, it's going to be people are going to have to be ready for a massive fight at the state level. And so we were part of an action with a lot of partners last week, where some folks are here were at too, right? And it really is like starting to put pressure on local electeds now for how are they going to deal with the impacts of this in a bipartisan way, because both sides of the aisle need to hear that they're going to have some courage right?
Okay, all right, so you're telling people get ready for a fight in October?
Oh, yeah.
Or, that's the end.
Today, tomorrow, this October, next October, October 2029, right? This is where we're in, I think, Joyce.
Okay. It's on.
Well, there are too many areas of egregious detail of what has been done to the American people. Great detail on how people on SNAP we destroyed there. I can give you lots of explanations of how people with intellectual disabilities and autism privileged services. I can talk to you about your grandma who's going to be thrown out of the nursing home because Medicare doesn't cover nursing homes, but if you are poor enough on Medicaid, because you have only $2,000 in assets, if you get $2,003, let's just throw your puppy out on the street. There are so many egregious things. So what you have to do is one by one, you as an individual citizen, you have to begin this very minute to talk non-stop to every person you meet, especially the lunkhead with the flag still flying or the bumper sticker still boasting about their affection for Donald Trump. You have to convince the people who are being injured that this is real and this is happening. What the Republicans attempted to do, and I'm not saying this in a partisan way, these are just facts. These aren't alternative facts. This is what they did. They designed the bill so that the most deadly parts of Medicaid cuts would take place after the election.
That's correct.
Because they believe you and your fellow voters and everyone sitting in this room are stupid. They believe you have a short attention span. They believe you'd rather change the channel and be watching some other program, or maybe a soap opera. Maybe there's a great show on Netflix. Apple TV's got a few more things, and there's another reality show on. Maybe you can discover the next Donald Trump. You have got to each, as an individual, get everyone you know. If you're shopping at Giant, you talk to the checkout clerk and you explain what's going on. If someone delivers something to your home, you talk to them. The crazy cousin you have, I've got a whole bunch of them. You talk to them. You talk to them and you say, do you understand why our grandparents left Europe? Do you understand why this person's family is leaving Central America? What the hell is the difference? You talk to each individual. This isn't going to happen because we're going to lead a revolution. This is going to be people power. This is going to be you talking to your next door neighbor. This is going to be you volunteering to do something to get everyone to vote. Because this does not represent the American people. This is the greatest crime brought by a legislative body on the American people. And the only way you can change it is by personal action. It's by your churches talking to their congregations, even though now some of those churches are allowed to give donations as long as they go to the Republican Party, I suppose. But everything that needs to be done is at your hands. Go home and post about these issues tonight. Write a letter to the editor. I know a damn good opinion editor at the local paper who thinks and writes and publishes the truth of what's going on. Find any way you can to communicate with the people who look at him and say, oh man, isn't Ivanka hot? I mean, geez, I can't stand it because it is such a horrible time. Let's just all concede. Let's all agree. We're screwed. But only you can change it. And you can change it with your individual actions. So get to work.
Thank you, Gary. And Sheryl, we will have the line until we turn it over to the Q&A.
Okay, sounds good.
What can we do?
All right, I did want to touch on a little bit what PHRC is doing as well as some
Yes.
thoughts for the community. I wanted to share that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission's Civil Rights Division, AKA CROCS they call us, because we are Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators. That is new. It came into existence January of 2024, and at the brilliant idea and concept of our executive director, Chad Dion Lassiter, we were mirrored after DOJ CRS as what we all know as America's peacemakers that has slowly dwindled to non-existence. And we are the third state in the nation to have a civil rights division at the state level. Ohio and New Jersey are first, and now Pennsylvania. And I'm happy to share that we are talking with other states that are interested in creating this component into their state. The reason why, with all that, is we are the division that does extend the reach of the PHRC. Because while we have a Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and Pittsburgh regional office, full of investigators and our legal team and so on and so forth, we're the team that doesn't have a main home, so to speak. We will travel across all 67 counties, and I know we touched on in various ways how education's important, but knowing, for an example, when I asked who falls under a protected class, I want every single Pennsylvanian to raise their hand. My job is not done until that's done. I also want to note that it's whether you are documented or not, you are protected under the PHRA. So these are things that the education piece is so important, and the Crocs will come to your backyard to talk with you about it. Now, when I touched on immigration, what is a barrier there is the trust issues, right? The fear for their safety, being in public spaces. And so that obviously just means repeat trips, continued collaboration, maybe making know your rights information behind the scenes, working with immigration attorneys, whatever collaboration work we can do to continue to empower and educate individuals. But the reality is, it's not as safe out in the streets. So I also wanted to say, for a community perspective, what you can do, I want to challenge each of you, regardless of whatever your professional career, personal home. We touched on the importance of talking to your neighbor. But I'm watching other states move in ways that allow education to continue. For example, there's a college in California where students that stop going out of fear of being out, the college has now allowed space to move those in-person classes to virtual. So think of that in forums like this. Maybe there's someone watching right now that didn't feel safe enough to be in this space. So I've seen a lot of transitioning into when we're having Know Your Rights town halls, educating on ICE and what they can or can't do. We're moving in a way where the use of technology, although there's issues with AI, that's a whole other conversation, but it relieves the need to be physically somewhere to get what you need. So I just want to put that plug out there that whatever space you're in, that might be a benefit to start looking into.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the things that we're doing at the World Affairs Council, we're starting a scholarship fund, because there are a lot of college kids now who can't apply for FAFSA, and the amount of aid is low. So please be on the lookout for that. We are going to try to help those kids stay in school and not have to be pushed out and have their whole lives destroyed in these next 3 years. So with that, I'm going to thank you for being such kind people and talking so well. But now it's your turn. And to lead this part of it, we're going to ask Autumn Gravier to come. She's with Planned Parenthood, and she will lead the Q&A with the audience. Come on, Autumn.
Are we swapping seats?
Yep, we are.
Oh, front and center. No pressure. I'm Autumn Gravier. I'm with Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates. I am the Policy and Political Fellow, and I'm going to lead the Q&A, but I also... I think it's important that one of the ways you can give back is to share your own personal stories. It's really impactful. At Planned Parenthood as well, we try to push people to share their stories. So I'm going to lead by sharing my own story and then pass it around if anyone else would like to share theirs, or I guess ask any more questions to our wonderful panelists. But yeah, so I married my high school sweetheart. At 16, I believed the lie that we sell young girls. That if you marry the right guy, find the right family, and build the perfect home, life will protect you. You'll be happy and safe. My life sort of took that dream on. A little bit of bumps lie that I wanted to believe because the reality itself was so much worse. And I wanted to believe that, but it happened again. And that wasn't the last thing that happened. I realized very quickly that I was not a wife, I was property, and I needed to get out of my marriage. I did everything I could to safely exit my marriage, but what people don't realize is that I got out, but I had no money, no job, no degree, no health insurance. I am chronically ill and I see doctors often. I couldn't live my life not being healthy. I couldn't take care of my kids. I applied for Medicaid. Medicaid was my lifeline. It's what saved me. It gave me the ability to stay healthy, to still go to doctors, secured a pediatrician for my kids. It allowed me to go to therapy, to go through all the trauma I had endured. It was seriously a lifeline. And I think a lot of people don't understand that this isn't just for low-income families. This is for people like me who was put in a position that I never thought I would be in. I thought I was living the American dream. So I'm lucky enough because of Medicaid to be sitting here right now sharing my story with all of you.
Wow, thank you for sharing. So let's take some questions from the audience. Wow.
Gonna compete people?
Yeah, go ahead, back there.
And if you'd like to just share your first name and where you're from.
My name is Cole Goodman. I'm from Dauphin County, the city of Harrisburg. And I just wanted to read something to you that Scott Perry just posted on social media. I wanted to get your guys' response to it. He just said, "The Freedom Caucus saved Medicaid. Liberals clearly don't care whether it survives for our sick and poor citizens who need it and for whom it was intended, either now or in the future. The left is more focused on woke ideology celebrating open borders and unlimited handouts to illegal aliens, the able-bodied who refuse to work, and even the wealthy who know how to game the system." So I guess my question as a 10th congressional district resident is, when we have a congressman that just outright lies, and when we have a congressman that doesn't see people as people, how can we enact change in the district? If you're just someone living in Harrisburg that is passionate about these issues, not an elected official, I know, Mr. Rick, you said talk to everybody that you see, and I completely agree with that. But when the opposition is just completely delusional to what is going on, what else can we do?
Get out the vote.
Get a new Congress.
Register people to vote. Talk to people.
Probably not 100% direct answer, but I'll do my best. I've probably mentioned this before, one of these, but like I'm always compelled by this thing I read that George Orwell wrote about the Spanish Civil War. Because folks know Orwell, a lot of his politics came from, he went and reported on the war, and there was literal fascism, and a lot of working people, a lot of unions were on the other side. So I got a lot of inspiration from that. But you also had a lot of working class people that were on the fascist side, a lot of peasants. And for a lot of them, it wasn't necessarily that they were fascists, they just didn't see another option, or their military was the one that was nearby, and was the one that gave the food. And the analogy he kind of gave was like, the allure of fascism, which to me, that's what Scott Perry said. But his post bores my brain now because it is always the same, like, the liberals hate this and that, and they wouldn't be going towards this Medicaid issue if they didn't think that it could damage them, right? This is him trying to protect himself. But the analogy Orwell gave is that, like, always when it comes down to issues like this where things are happening, the working class is always the front line. It was the front line for Franco, against Franco, who became the dictator of Spain at the time, because the working class people of the country are the ones that benefit the most from a decent society and a standard of living. Unlike the rich and unlike other classes that can be bought off, those working people that Scott Perry keeps trying to dupe, they're the ones that benefit from Medicaid. They're the ones that have nowhere to go and are exploited and go through the most difficult things. The young women that go to Planned Parenthood, it's not like they have a slush fund that could fly them to wherever doctor they want to go to get help. We're now losing not even just access to abortion services, but support for everything else from reproductive care, right? And the analogy he also gave on it is, they can't be permanently bribed. People are kind of like, he kind of compared people in the working class like a flower that doesn't always realize why it's growing to the sun, but it knows there's something better, and that's the direction we have to go. And they can't be permanently bribed. And at a certain point, and this is where the conversations, I would try to avoid calling someone a dullard, in my opinion, but but talking with people
Amongst friends,
a friend, yeah, not yeah. But you can keep having the conversations, because like a lot of Trump voters I talk to right now, some of which are my members, it's not even challenging them on how much they love Trump, because some people love Trump, really love Trump, but okay, your job's in Medicaid, and Medicaid money might go away. Don't you want to lose your job? Or do you think it's okay someone can get kicked off these benefits? It is a long-term thing. I wish it happened overnight. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've had many arguments I think back to in college. It took me 10 years to realize, oh, that changed me, and it took time, right? So I wish there was a quick answer, but in my mind, I always keep that in my mind. When I go and talk to somebody, like to your point of the post, because Cole, I know you've had conversations with people, and they don't always go well, canvassing or whatever, but I just keep hoping in my head, because I saw these on the doors last go round in the fall. You can get through to people, but sometimes it's not immediate, right? So for someone like him, I just feel like we gotta keep at it.
I'd also like to add, it makes me wonder, what did the civil rights activists before us, what did they say, think we're doing? That's right, because this opposition is nothing new. It has always been here. We have a white supremacy problem. It has always been there. And so for me, in my role, it is bad enough that all the work and all the legislation that has come beforehand to lift others up in a playing field, that we never reached total and equitable playing field. We never got there. And now these setbacks. So I would, and I appreciate what my panelists, co-panelists are saying up here, that don't worry about the who so much. Understand that this theme has always been around. And so what do we need to do with that? We hold on to hope, right? You think of inspiring people before us, MLK, the more our universe bends is long, but it bends towards justice. You have to hold on to that. And then I would also add that voting is the absolute thing. And I've heard many people that have voted that now are regretting their vote. Yeah. And that is big. So what does that mean? At reading, Project 2025 is not new under this administration. That was written before. And I consider us in phase 2 of it now, because phase 1 is the executive orders, is the different changes that are happening. But now best practices are coming out on how to continue forward with that. So I know that's kind of like good and bad, but I guess I just want to say, don't worry about the who. Understand that this message has been an underlying message in America, and I would do a call to action on. I'm very, very proud to see how many white Americans are standing up. So.
I would add one thing to that. You read the statement from Scott Perry and the Freedom Caucus, these Freedom Caucus brothers and sisters, where they try to say that they're trying to protect Medicaid for the people who really need it. Ask them, what do they mean by that? Yeah. Look at the provisions of the Reconciliation Act and ask them if they understand it. Ask Representative Perry, if you're so concerned about people staying on Medicaid who really deserve it, would you please get rid of the 6-month challenge? Because the amputee I know is not going to grow limbs back in 6 months. You know, my brother's profound autism and dementia is not going to go away in 6 months. But people are being dropped, no offense again, by state employees who are understaffed and underpaid and under-recognized. Perhaps if they all were SEIU members, they could do more about this. But you've got to, you've got to say, I'm sorry, but that's not right. You're wrong. And you keep saying it over and over again. and you keep getting others to understand it, and you build a movement. You write about it, you talk about it, you sing about it, you go to church and talk to your pastor about it. You get everyone involved in the conversation. 2026 is not that far away, but there also has been a Senate bill introduced by Senator Schumer and Senator Merkley of Oregon to repeal. Will that happen? The fact that there's been a bill introduced, the fact that Senator Josh Hawley and Lisa Murkowski are trying now to run away from their record of having voted for it, maybe there's a chance.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a chance. Maybe if the Epstein files come out to be true, if there are records, if there are pictures, if there are videos, if there are witnesses, if they can be confirmed, maybe that low point will turn this nation around.
Cole, can I just add one thing? I'm a communications guy. So one of the things I want to say about that social media post you read is don't take the bait. Like, Harry's trying to change the narrative. He's uncomfortable with the fact that people are talking about 10 million Americans are going to be kicked off their health care. So he's saying that the Freedom Caucus saved Medicaid. Kicking 10 million people off of a health care program is a pretty funny way to save it. That's what I would say in response to that. Don't take the bait. He's trying to get us talking about open borders and whatever else he had in that too. Not relevant. What's relevant is what is this going to mean for people? And he's uncomfortable with that, and that's why he's trying to change the conversation.
Thank you.
Great question, thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Anybody else? You want to introduce yourself then? That'd be great.
Hi, I'm Marcia Berry. I live in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. And I think there's a real hunger around the question of what can we do. And I wanted to just share a couple of thoughts. And I love what Sheryl said about the arc of justice and how it bends. But it doesn't bend on its own. It bends when we do the work that makes it bend. And we're being called to do like all hands on deck work right now. We have to build really, really broad coalitions across every imaginable difference. And I'd like to remind people that the number of people who did not vote in the last election is greater than the number of people who voted for either candidate.
Together.
Together.
So
Together, yes.
we have, understandably, people have lost faith in our political system, and they're tuned out, or their needs are not being addressed, or candidates don't bother to talk to certain populations. So if we could just activate the people who are not voting, they're probably easier to talk to than the fanatics on the right. And if you're not involved in the Poor People's Campaign, they're doing that. They're organizing low-income and impoverished people across all differences, doing Moral Mondays, doing a lot of great work that, for some odd reason, isn't yet connected to a lot of the activists and a lot of the other groups who are also doing wonderful work. And I think, we have to learn how to talk across differences. And that means we have civil conversations with people who think differently. We ask questions, we listen, we find out, why do you feel that way? What made you vote that way? What impressed you about this? And we don't demean, and we don't get into that oppositional kind of polarity that has us at such odds in the country. And there's a lot of organizations, if you're not already connected, the PHRC is doing great work. They have advisory councils. They have people who serve as their ambassadors. There's Red, Wine, and Blue. There's Indivisible. There's Cumberland Valley Rising. There's Capital Region Stands Up. There's 10th District. If you're not yet connected to a group at Affordable PA and all the wonderful people that put on this event, to some group that's doing work, link arms with other people, don't fall into despair and don't get isolated. The best way to get moving is to link up with others. And, you know, we have to be smarter than being divided. This is the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer.
But if we're smarter than that, we can't be divided. So anything you can do to build the social fabric in the community, start where you are. Start conversations, but just start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In my seat, I mean, I think that makes so much sense. Hold the chair.
Anyone else have any questions or stories?
Your hand up earlier, yes.
No, I think you really covered a lot of what
Hi, my name is Stella. Yes. And I'm in Hampton Township, and I am with PA 10th District Network. And we're trying to work to get Scott Perry out. I would urge everybody to contact Janelle Stelson. Her website does not have a contact, but it does have a P.O. box for donations, so I would write her a little note. Read her position on things. I read hers on immigration. I'm not really thrilled with the way she's worded her stance. But if there's anything that you disagree or wish that she strengthened, if you have any opinions, because I kind of feel like she's being rammed down our throats right now, the way she announced her candidacy, and then Josh Shapiro and other people immediately endorsed her without giving any other Democrats a chance to get on board. And that was one of the things that Kamala Harris, people felt like she was rammed down our throats too. I mean, I liked her, but I understood their objections. So communicate with Janelle Stelson. She did move into the district. But communicate with her how you feel about her stances. Read them on her website. Give her some grace, but help her become, if she is going to be the candidate against Scott Perry, help her strengthen her position and how she comes across to people, because we have got to get Scott Perry out.
And we have to look at the entire ticket.
Yes.
Because the decisions that are going to be made at the state legislative level are going to be tremendous. Even though they're cutting health and human service funds, they're cutting education funds. Those are federal funds that make up about half of the total expenditure of the state. When you shrink half of the source of revenue that comes into the state, all other programs are going to suffer tremendous cuts. So any area you're concerned, any area that you're concerned about in the budget is under risk. Next year will be, and if you think there's been difficult Pennsylvania budget sessions that went on for months where there was no solution, hey, they're back. They're back. They're coming back. Because the solution is either to restore the federal funds, to raise state taxes significantly, or to cut services. And I think the odds are you can expect Republican Senate and Democratic House and a Democratic governor having different views on that, but all of them will result in cuts because you can't operate the state with that significant of a loss. All states will be in deep trouble, and perhaps that will lead to enough of an outcry. But it's a shame that we have to wait till everyone suffers, till more people suffer, till more people die, till more people are injured before the message will get through.
Do we want to open up to other panelists? Is there any more questions?
Just one more question from the crowd.
One more question.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, from the back, great.
Hi, my name is Robert. I'm from Cumberland County, and I wrote this while sitting here, and it's kind of a statement and a question. But I started my American dream early on in high school, seeking a way out of what I saw to be a problematic minimum wage. I worked while testing out of high school. I tried college, but the costs of it were quickly making me panic about where I saw my future headed. They were destructive to my financial goals, to say the least. To succeed in a space where our minimum wage stagnated at $7.25 for longer than my current adulthood, I have relied on experience and specialization in many technical fields to stay ahead and out of poverty. With the rising costs of living and our state's starvation wage starts at around $15 an hour. But this sort of figure was really relevant and more talked about during COVID, as people were starting to see this figure really impact their day-to-day. Their disconnection from communities and other lifelines that they had were making them more self-reliant, and therefore their wages were more important. I see the tax bill making this figure even more diminutive, as the cost will fall onto the taxpayers. The kinds of cuts they're making, the changes that they're making to what services we have around us, and of course our healthcare. And so I can count the ways that I know I'll end up paying more, but what are the lesser known ways that they will increase, and what kind of increases should I let my neighbors know about?
I want to take that one.
What was the inflation question?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I mean, the inflation thing's tricky right now because it depends on the good you're talking about, right? Because what we're really dealing with is a lot of, at least at the moment, like inflation ticked up a little bit at the start of this year, and I think it's kind of a longer term vision. But really, we're still grappling with the inflation that has the last couple of years, right? Yeah. And I think in what we briefly saw a change in folks' wages as the business community basically needed to bribe people to go to work and get COVID, right? Wages came up real quick, but those costs, especially energy, things like that, still aren't going down. And I think the real worry, because this is part of the core of Trump's feud with Jay Powell, who I think he's been on record saying, what idiot put this guy out there, and this guy's a moron, when he appointed him as chair of the Fed. Right. But the Federal Reserve handles interest rates and stuff, right? And they set these borrowing rates, and they keep saying they're going to lower these rates, and they keep wanting to, but because of the policies, and because of the potential for so much disruption, even though it hasn't hit quite so hard this year, like they just had a meeting this week, and word came out from it, and even though Trump's still attacking him this week, they're still not cutting interest rates because they still feel, they're basically, the comment they said was like the impacts of the policies haven't been that bad yet, but we still really fear that this stuff is going to happen, and so we can't cut the rates yet, because if it does, inflation's going to go. And so right now, I think the biggest thing to watch, because I couldn't probably give you the best specific example, because there could be so many things across the board, right, that are especially getting hit by trade policies. Yeah. But if those ripple effects start to hit with the business community, especially where some of the imports are lagging right now, some of the products that have been stocked for a little while, because of fewer imports, because of rising tariffs, are starting to build, right? Yeah. Those shocks could be coming the second half of this, like going into the fall, and I think that's the biggest worry consumers have right now. But like, to the other point of your story, which I appreciate, is like we're still already kind of screwed as is. You know what I mean? Like that's I think the real consideration most working people have, and for our PSA friends, Jimbo in the audience too. We bargain contracts for members. There's the perception of the economy and the perception of the inflation is actually now at this point worse than like what the actual numbers have been. The numbers go back up. I don't know how the heck the market or working people are going to respond. Yeah.
Yeah. I just add one thing that there's no way to predict anything regarding the economy when there is not an adult in the room. We can threaten we're going to have tariffs and then give a 30-day waiver, and then after 30 days we'll extend it to 60. Right. Or maybe TikTok will pass a law that we're going to get rid of it because of the threat to national security. But if a donor comes along and tells us it's okay, let's go ahead and keep it going, because that kind of gig economy is helping someone, but it's not necessarily helping people. I know, nor does it come with insurance.
Right.
But there are no guardrails. It's a circus of yes people. You want to predict that? Wow.
I would like to just say, you know, we have a pretty hot economy right now for some people. I mean, things are moving around. The people, I'm pretty loud.
No,
so you
people
can
have
probably-
hearing issues, not everybody can hear, so please give her the microphone.
Sorry. The people who've always had the money are making the money. The women who have always had the rights because they could afford to find them, they could afford to escape, have them more now than ever. The story that has to be told is that there's, I don't know what percent, but there's this percentage of people out there who are thriving, whether they voted for Trump or not. And it's all the other people, many of whom who didn't vote, who voted for Trump, who are being left by the wayside. And isn't that the intention of this whole thing? And I think we have to ask each other, where are we? On which side of that? And then how are we gonna work together, regardless of which side we're on, to bring us together? And people don't understand that have 3 jobs, that have 4 children, that don't have health care. They don't have time to think about how they're impacted. They often can't even get to a polling place in Philadelphia to vote. I don't know that. But, I mean, these are the kind of things we have to address. And we have to be helped by the school system. These young people coming up today need to know what's happening in the real world of the United States of America. What we were meant to be and what we have become. With no fooling around in the middle.
And I just want to say this lady is behind Hall Manor Health Clinic. No, I mean, that's important, because you're going to be needed now more than ever, right?
Oh, yeah,
Giving
we don't
free
know how
medical
we'll
care.
afford it, but we'll do it.
Okay, well, thank you again, everyone, so much for joining us tonight, for our amazing panel, for Joyce, our host, and all of you, for asking your questions and sharing your stories and your ways to get involved. If you would like to stay involved and hear from some more of the partner organizations that put on this event tonight, if you didn't sign up on your way in, perfect timing. The event is over. If you didn't sign up on your way in or register on the Mobilize, please do that on the way out so we can stay in touch with you. We heard from Autumn, we heard from Rob sharing his personal story a little bit, we heard from some more of you. I think that sharing your personal story, sharing how you are connected to these issues is another one of the ways that's really powerful as we're having these conversations with our friends and neighbors. All of us have a connection to this, and so yes, this event was live streamed by the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg's Facebook page, so you can find it there. But if you would like to, like to work with us to continue sharing your story, please get in touch with one of my colleagues or I. If you would like to submit a letter to the editor and need some help walking through that process, also come find one of us. And again, we really appreciate all of your time with us on this Thursday evening, and we hope you go back, tell your friends and family and neighbors what we talked about here tonight, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you.